If you're in a group and you're rolling, like try to keep your hands open. Keep your hands on the brakes. Keep your hands, accessible to the brakes, but keep them open, because as soon as you start to hook your fingers around the hood, you're putting pressure on the underside, which pulls the top of the hand down. So you're adding pressure to your hands essentially as soon as you start to grip.
So is no hands even better?
No hands is great.
Just sitting up, no
Not
hands?
Not safe, but... Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Being slouches.
Today, Bike Fit series.
Bike Fit. Bringing it back.
Yep. Bringing back the Bike Fit series. And we're going to talk about hand numbness.
Yes. We did knee pain last time.
Yep.
Very common.
Super common.
Hand numbness, is that number 2? Or are they pretty even?
They're pretty even.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about how to kind of like diagnose hand numbness and kind of the steps that I go through during a bike fit. There was a lot of ways. I was trying to figure out how to make this work to where people could kind of diagnose it themselves.
Yeah.
But every way I went about it, it was still came back to like, you still have to check everything because in bike fitting, every movement you make affects 5 others.
Exactly.
So you can't take one thing into consideration without kind of looking at everything else. So we're going to talk about hand numbness, but we're basically going to go through the steps that I go through during a bike fit.
Excellent.
So with that, I'm Coach Dale Sanford.
I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunch athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking us out on Facebook and YouTube at buildpeakcompete, all up on that Instagram at BPC Performance, and wherever you get your podcasts from. Spotify,
All of them.
Apple.
Just make sure you take a quick sec and give us the old 5-star.
Exactly.
We're still looking for that person.
It's out of 10 stars. It's out of 10 stars. So if you think we're just 50%,
yeah,
just go with 5.
And if you get something out of it, a review is also extremely helpful.
Yes.
Subscribe, like, share, yada yada yada,
Blah 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 blah.
All right. So, hand numbness.
Yeah, let's kick it off.
It's
so you fit, like, let's kind of go into your fitting background now for people who didn't catch the first one. I mean, you've been doing probably 4 fits a week, it seems like now, for quite some time. You're well over multiple hundreds of bike fits completed.
I've got, I've been fitting for 13 years, and I probably have a database of close to 600 bikes that I've put my hands on.
Yeah, so this isn't like you fit 4 different people and you've had one person with a hand numbness issue that you've troubleshooted and found an answer to.
No, it is literally most common to second most common thing that comes through the door is hand numbness. But I will say, like, in bike fitting, everyone deserves to have a good fit. You don't know what you don't know, and most people don't know what a good fit feels like until they have one. You can't blame your fit for lack of fitness. So if you're having hand numbness like way late in a ride or something like that, it's hard to really say it's the fit, because there's always going to be a level of body breakdown that happens when you're challenging your fitness, whether it be longer or harder or whatever, or both. Your core is going to break down. The muscles are getting tired. Your core is not going to hold you up. You're going to add weight to your hands and stuff like that. So
body position changes.
Yeah,
pedal stroke changes, like all that. Same with running. This is obviously we're talking about bike fit, but it's going to be similar to someone who's out running. Watch someone at the start of a marathon, and then watch them as they cross the finish line, and the marathon shuffle by the end. Yeah. And you get a good feel for what happens as fatigue starts taking over the course of a longer session.
And so like if you just got hand numbness lately and you've been riding longer and adding volume or duration or workload or whatever, just chill on it and let it see if it works itself out. But if you have hand numbness that comes on during a normal duration, intensity, workload ride, especially if it happens really early, like that's where we got to figure it out. You really should not have to ride unless you have an existing nerve issue or damage or something like that we cannot fix with positioning. It needs to be fixed with strength and physical therapy or flexibility or something like that. Then but a lot of the time, I would say most of the time, we can fix it with positioning if it's not just a major issue. So causes of hand numbness. Basically, it's two major things. You got blood flow or a nerve issue. To be perfectly honest, I don't think blood flow is the major issue here. I would say roughly 80% of the people that I see with hand numbness, it's a nerve thing. And it's a positional thing that's tripping a nerve.
Now, is that something as you get them on the bike and you're going through the fit, you can kind of tell? Or is that...
I look for a lot of visual cues. This is not like diagnosing hand numbness is not something that is going to show up in an angle per se or something like that. It's going to show up in their body. Like, are they shrugging their shoulders? Are they reaching forward with their shoulders?
Yeah.
Are they keeping...
By reaching forward, you mean like down and towards the bars or like up towards the ears?
If the front, well, both. If you're shrugging your shoulders up towards your ears, you can be tripping a nerve in your shoulder or in your neck.
Yeah.
If you're jutting that shoulder forward because you're having to reach too far.
It's like spreading the shoulder blades.
Yeah, you're protracting the shoulders. You're reaching really far, you can trip a nerve that way. The other part is your neck. If there's too much flexion in your neck, and that's probably, it's 50-50. Like with your, if your neck is like tilted backwards quite a bit, you're craning your neck back, like you could
chin to the sky.
Yeah, you could easily be tripping a nerve in your neck.
Yeah.
And that's the nerves, in your cervical spine go down your arms. Like a lot of them travel right down through the shoulder and into your arm and your hand. So those are the ones we're most concerned about.
Now, do some people experience like certain fingers versus whole hands? Is that point to one side or the other from your experience, or is that something?
Yeah. So normally, if it's like a whole hand, it usually originates more in the neck and shoulders. And if you're getting like your last two fingers, because the two nerves that run into the major nerves that run into your hands that you will trip will either send your last two fingers numb, or they'll send basically your first three numb.
So kind of like the lobster gloves that you'd wear in the wintertime?
Sure. Yeah. So if it's usually if it's a wrist or hand pressure majorly, then it'll send it to one side or the other.
Be isolated to one or the other.
If it's more whole hand, it's more neck and shoulder.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, your goal really is to balance out, the goal in bike fitting in general is to balance out the weight in the major touch points, feet, butt, hands. And any one of them being off sends weight to the others. So when I do a bike fit, the first thing I look at is seat height. And the seat height, if the seat is too high, you're going to be adding a ton of weight to your butt. And because now there's no weight on your feet, all that weight is usually transferred to your hands.
Because your butt doesn't like too much weight.
Your butt is going to do whatever.
Like,
Yeah. If you've ever had...
soft tissue issue.
Look, I know we could go on with other issues here, but if you have pain in the saddle or getting numbness where it shouldn't be numb, say that, lower the saddle a little bit. Let's start bringing it down and see if that pressure comes off. So I always check seat height first, because probably, again, it's a vast majority of people come in, their seat's too high.
Gotcha.
And so that
you notice that more common than like seat too low.
100%. Yeah. Occasionally I'll get somebody that comes in with too low, but too low doesn't normally cause hand numbness.
Yeah. So if they're coming in, they're likely not coming in because of hand numbness issues.
Yeah, too low is usually like a foot or back or butt issue.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because your pelvis rolls too far backwards.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so on the hands, if the saddle is in the right spot, you have a decent amount of weight on the feet. The feet takes weight off the butt, and then the butt will take weight off the hands. Like you're balancing everything out. So seat height, you have to check it first and foremost. Secondarily to seat height is the tilt. Fore and aft is not usually the major issue. People, because of, like, if you read anything on the internet about bike fitting, you'll read the cops thing, which you already did the bad boys thing last time. So don't. Yeah, the knee over pedal.
It's gonna be stuck in my head now.
Like, so most people will go, like, you get people in here and almost everyone is straight knee over pedal. Like,
and by that, for those that aren't familiar, if you take a plumb bob,
yep, and you run
take
it
from
down
that bony process under the knee down, it going straight through
the pedal spindle.
Yeah, that would be cops.
Yeah,
Bad boys.
That's
bad boys.
There you go. I'll let you go. That's the starting point for most people, and it's a good starting point for most people. But a lot of times, it's your seat is just tilted poorly.
Yeah,
and people will, when the seat's too high and they're getting a ton of nose pressure, their first instinct is to tilt the saddle down instead of lowering it. So they tilt the saddle down, and now they've just created a slide for themselves to slide off the front and add pressure to your hands.
and while you're riding, you don't want to slide off your saddle. So what do? Push against it.
Yeah. Yeah, you
try to spend the whole ride trying to prop yourself up and prevent yourself from sliding down the nose. And even like, this is something I've experienced before, because I've kind of played around with saddle tilt some, especially on my time trial bike, and small little degrees in tilt make a massive difference in in saddle pressure and also weight through the front end of my bike.
Yeah, for most people, the internet is a terrible place to go and find information on this stuff. If you look at pictures of some of the pro guys, I mean, their saddle height is incredible because they're on a bike that's 2 sizes too small for them. But they have mechanics and people to help them make that bike work for them, so they can get that aggressive position. But I mean, I've seen pro folks with their saddle probably 15 degrees down, and I'm like, I have no idea how they can ride 100+ miles a day on that thing. No idea. But they're not the general population.
They're not. No.
So my tip for people when they're setting the tilt on their saddle, find the sweet spot of the saddle. Don't pay attention to the back. Don't pay attention to the front. Where you believe you're going to sit the majority of your time, that's the point that's going to be level. If the back goes up some, that's great. It's there. It's there to help you, cue you to tilt your pelvis at the right time. And then if the nose, you don't want to level the nose, the rivet, so to speak, because you don't want to be out there a ton. You don't want to be on the tip of the saddle a lot.
Yeah, the only time you would be there is if you have extreme pelvic roll forward.
Right.
You're really getting down into an aggressive low position is the only time. Because otherwise, you're not resting on areas of the anatomy that are meant to handle your body weight.
Correct.
Or a third of your body weight, or whatever the math ends up being.
Correct.
Check.
And and again, you don't want that much pressure in the nether regions, when you're riding just the tip of a saddle.
Yep.
So check the tilt. Level.
So step 1, height. Step 2, tilt.
Check the sweet spot.
And
of the
in
saddle.
general, it's going to be too much forward tilt. So nose of saddle down more relative to the rear of the saddle when we're dealing with hand.
The sweet spot of the saddle.
Sweet spot,
if you look at the sweet spot of the saddle, level it, and then kind of move it one way or the other. If you're getting nose pressure, to your point earlier, go in small increments, very small increments, because it will small amount of nose down is a lot of weight in the hands.
Huge difference. Yep.
So
step 3,
up, nose up takes weight off the hands, but adds pressure to your junk.
Yeah.
Nose down takes weight off your junk, puts weight on your hands.
Yep.
All right. So just start level. Start with the sweet spot level. So seat height, level. Fore and aft is the last thing I would check on the seat for hand numbness anyways. If your saddle, if you find you drop a plumb bob from that bony process, below your kneecap, if it goes behind the pedal spindle, you can afford to come forward on that saddle. So at least get yourself centered up, and then you could possibly even go further forward. And the reason we would move the saddle forward for hand numbness is to shorten the reach of the bike. So you could be, if you feel like you're riding with very straight arms, like reaching forever for the bars, you're probably better suited to come forward a little bit and shorten that reach, so that you can actually carry a slight bend in the elbows. If fore and aft is the issue, it's very obvious right away. Gotcha. Because they look like they're reaching into no man's land. They just can't ever get there. Or if you find this is really common, if you find that when you ride, your hands are more comfortable choked way back on the hoods, there's a good chance that you need to either shorten the stem or...
I was going to say, at what point is it a stem issue and not a saddle issue? Are you using the knee over pedal stroke as a reference point there, or is it...
Knee over pedal is your guide, your baseline. Okay. And then if you are at knee over pedal and it's still way long, it's probably a stem.
Or a bike size issue.
This is where, like, I would say if you're really thinking it's a reach issue, go get a fit. Go get a professional look at it, because you don't want to keep scooting it so far forward that you end up with a knee problem, and you don't want to shorten the bike so much that you're cramped now and you can't get out of the saddle. I don't know if you've ever tried to get out of the saddle on a bike that's too short. It sucks. It's not fun.
Especially if you're on like a triathlon specific bike where you start bashing your knees into the
right, exactly.
the arm pads.
You just have no power. You got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So fore and aft is not usually the issue for hand numbness. There's a lot of other things that can be a problem with, but so height, tilt, fore and aft, kind of check it, knee over pedal. We can kind of get to that point. At least it's a starting point for you. It may not be optimized for your pedal stroke, but it's a good starting point. Once you're beyond that, now we're talking about messing with the bars. Okay. And so if I break it into if I'm talking about neck and shoulder, like what you could trip in the neck and shoulders, I would say more commonly these days, I'll see people come in with bars that are too high. Yeah. And I get what you're thinking. I know, comfortable. So comfortable to be more sat up. But the thing that I struggle with is you bought a race bike. You bought an aggressive geometry bike. You kind of knew what you were getting into, and it wasn't comfortable. So either you or the shop or whatever stuck a 45-degree angle riser stem on there just to sit you up higher because it's comfortable. But it was just that's a Band-Aid on...
Yeah, I mean, I would almost argue, is it more comfortable? It's some...
That's the thing, is half the time when you go up, it's more comfortable on your back.
But your butt starts taking a lot more load.
Your butt starts taking load, but you also... It causes a shrug.
Yeah.
And so... This is the analogy I use, and it may not come across audio-wise, but if you walk up to a bar, and the bar is chest height...
Coffee bar is what he's talking about, folks. Coffee bar.
Whatever your bar of choice is. If you walk up to a bar, you're not just going to put your hands up there and keep your elbows below the bar and sit like that. You're going to take your whole arm, put it up there, shrug your shoulders high to adjust to the height of the bar, and then that's how you're going to get your hands up on the bar. But you're going to have the pretty big shrug, And that's what happens when your handlebars are too high. You're adjusting your shoulder height to adjust for the differences in hand pressure. So when the bars come up, your wrist angles get thrown off like crazy. That's why you see people with a riser stem and the handlebars that are tilted way far up, because they've basically just thrown themselves into like a backwards lean, and it's not optimal. What I end up doing more times than not is getting rid of the riser stem, and immediately the shoulders, bloop, they drop.
They come down,
The shrug is gone. And
that does not impact angle from chest to hip to knee.
No. Torso angle and chest height don't change at all. It's just the shoulders relax and they drop. So that, like, if you have a riser stem right now and you're getting hand numbness, get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Or have some video from the side, right, while you're riding, and see what your shoulder, or have some body awareness, right? See, what are my shoulders doing?
If you do feel yourself shrugging,
do I feel like I'm going, I don't know,
yeah,
while you're riding?
Yeah, if you feel like you're shrugging, or if from the side your shoulder is very close to your ear, that's a dead giveaway. We can afford to drop the bars and relax the shoulders a little bit, and it's going to balance the weight out in your hand some. Because with the bars that high, you're either causing poor wrist angles or a lot of weight in the hands. So drop the bars down, let your shoulders drop, and go from there. Move on to the next thing if you're still having hand numbness.
Gotcha.
So the other part with neck and shoulder is shrugging forward, or reaching with your shoulders, as I explain it.
That shoulder blade spreading.
Yeah, so you're protracting the shoulders, or you're rounding out your upper back, essentially. That is where the whole fore and aft comes in a little bit, and the stem length. Those are the easy ones to diagnose. And most of the time, if you can have your hands on the grip of the hood, and
so we're talking about road bikes now, specifically.
If you're having hand numbness on a time trial bike, go in aero more.
Get off those wings.
Work your fit in aero before you get too concerned about your bull horns on a TT bike. But on a road bike, if your hand's out on the shifter, the end of the hood, grip, whatever you want to call it, and you can carry a little bit of bend in your elbows, like you can just feel them kind of break, and they drop downward. That's probably pretty good. That's a good start.
Just relax.
Relaxed
elbows.
Yeah, just to decide if the reach of the bike is decent at least. The number one thing that I see that causes that shoulder to jut forward is the transition from the bar to the hood. And so a lot of times it may not be your fault. When whoever built the bike either just didn't tilt the bars right before they threw the hoods on there, and then they wrapped the bar tape up and they called it good.
Or they may just have a preference on where they put it on their own bike, right?
Right.
So those hoods, if you've not seen like a road bar, you can slide that hood up and down the curve on the bar. So that's not a fixed point where you're putting those on there typically. So you have some flexibility on where that goes, and you can also rotate, in and out.
Right.
So in this situation, what you're seeing is someone's going probably too far down, a little bit too far down the bar.
Exactly.
Creating almost like a little U or a drop, a valley between the hood and the top of the bar. Yeah,
essentially, yes. That's the two things you'll notice is either the transition from the bar to the hood looks like a U shape. So there's a big gap between the front of the hand and the back of the hand, or the hood is so far down the bar that the back of the hand sits way higher. And so with more pressure on the back of the hand, your body tries to balance everything out. And so it does that by adding pressure to the front of the hand. And when you tilt your wrist down like that, guess what comes next?
Shoulders.
That shoulder starts to jut forward to balance out the weight, across the whole chain. So if you look at your bars and you notice that there's either like a big U shape between your bar and the hood, or if the bar itself sits higher than the hood itself, then I would readjust those hoods to make that transition as flat as possible, and then retilt the bars.
Yeah. Now go into retilting the bars. So where do you set a bar? So how does someone even know if their bar is set correctly?
So when I do a fit, like I go through the whole shebang and just make sure it's all good from start to finish. So what I'll do is I actually set the drops first. So I'll loosen up the bars. If everything's good reach wise, I'll loosen the bars up and I'll retilt based on the drops. And it's highly dependent on the bend of your bar.
The type of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every bar has a different amount of drop, different length, all kinds of stuff. So I'll find the sweet spot of the drop itself, the flattest spot, or the longest, flattest section. I'll find that and I'll tilt it. I'll tilt based on that.
Gotcha.
And so what I want to be able to rest down on that flat spot for the most part, unless you have like an erg bend and then you want to rest.
Now we're getting in the weeds.
Now you're going to rest down in. But okay, most bars, when they sweep back, you're going to rest down on that drop.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to feel like you're pushing down and into them. But we want to, for the most part, be straight down on them. And so I'll set that first.
Yep.
And then I'll check, hey, what does the hood look like? Okay. And at that point, if it's really bad, you may have to unwrap the bars and set them and then rewrap the bars.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you can just loosen the hood and slide it up the bar and create that transition to be nice and flat.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get the best balanced
Sounds
pressure.
Like we need a YouTube video for
in
this.
Your hands. We might have to go with a YouTube video. But if you have even the slightest some imbalance front to back, your hand feels that. Your body feels it, and it's going to correct hand angles and wrist angles and stuff to rebalance that hand pressure.
Or to do its best to do so, right?
Right. And so get that transition flat, and I'm going to give away a little bit of a trick here that I've been using for years now that I debated whether to put it out there because it's my secret.
Trade secret?
Yeah. So a lot of times where the hood touches the bar, depending on how the bar's wrapped, there may still be a gap in there, and you might be able to on the very back of the hood, you may be able to push down on it and it sinks. I'll take foam insulation, like window insulation, that's just like a padded foam, cut it into a little strip and just put it under the back of the hood and just kind of fill that gap as much as possible and then fold the hood over it. And it creates just a nice, smooth, helps the transition.
The weight weenies out there aren't going to like this, Dale.
It's like...
You just added
foam.
1 gram.
It's foam, not even.
That's an eighth of a gram.
But it creates a really, really smooth transition on the bar.
Yeah.
It helps it, and I've done it on old bars, new bars, and it really, like I said, it depends on how the bars were wrapped, how smooth. The newer hoods are better about it because they have little rubber fillers.
It's got its own filler?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But they don't always do the job if the bars were wrapped, a specific way.
Yeah.
So create that smooth transition. See if you can get that to feel like it's just a super flat section to put your hands on.
Yeah, something where it feels balanced, comfortable, wrists are in a good angle.
Yeah, if you look at it from the side and there's a huge variation between the bar itself and the hood, we got to fix it. That's my number one fix for hand numbness, is making sure that transition is super flat.
How much does bar width? So right now on the road, especially in the road world, and even if you start thinking about gravel as well. So gravel, you start having some of these bars that are going wide. And in the road world, you're starting to see more and more of the bars coming more narrow. It's kind of the thing that's the rage right now in the pro peloton is, 38 or less bar width. Have you played around with that at all? Have you noticed anything in that regard? Or just even guesses on what that could or could not do, or is that something that you think would be a non-issue?
No, it is. So technically, the wider the bar goes, the more that you are going to start engaging your scapula, like in your shoulders. You're going to have a wider stance, so your scapula are going to start coming together as your hands get wider.
So that's shoulder blades
shoulder blades. Sorry. So so you can start if you get way too wide, and there might be something else at play, in the height or something like that, that's causing you to like shrug super far backwards and maybe upwards a hair or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you're forcing anything through your neck and shoulders, you're risking hand numbness.
Yeah.
So if you get super wide bars, there's a chance that your shoulder blades could be retracted too much, and you can pinch the nerve in your, similar nerves in your neck and shoulders. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen too much of it on narrow bars. I know people are...
There might end up being more like, I'm just kind of trying to think through what the position might be, but more shoulders up towards ears, kind of compressing.
That would be more of a concern of like protracting the shoulder, rounding out the upper back.
Yeah.
And then having the front of the shoulder come in a good bit.
Yeah.
I would think that may be a lesser concern than too wide.
Gotcha.
Just based on the muscles that are activating when you go wider versus narrower. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that everybody needs to go out and get 36 centimeter bars.
Got them on order right now. I actually just booked it during your little, as soon as you said, okay.
Yeah, but it can, that can be a part of it. So bar height, let's talk about bar height. We'll go on to that one. Honestly, I see less of an issue with hand numbness and bar height. I already talked about, too high is common.
Yeah.
But too low generally isn't the issue. Too low, like hand numbness too low, comes from your poor core strength.
Gotcha.
Because as you go lower, there's a point where like your core gives out essentially, and then you just add weight to your hands because the spinal muscles aren't doing their job.
Gotcha.
So it's not like
some people trying to go too low though and rolling their back and now having to take their chin way up and causing that pinch in the in the neck? So
too low is similar to too far.
Yeah. Okay.
And so in too low, again, you start to give way in your mid back and spine. Mm-hmm. Your core becomes disengaged because you're trying to like fake a longer reach, whether it be forward or down. Down, like low bars won't create hand numbness in the sense of pinching a neck and shoulder, like a neck and shoulder nerve.
Gotcha.
It's more of a, like we've now, we have to reach so far that we're unable to hold it. And now we're adding weight because we can't keep weight off our hands. Our core is not working for us any longer.
Gotcha.
So it is a hand pressure. It's more of a hand pressure, maybe blood flow issue.
Gotcha. And that's the first time you've kind of got into blood flow being more of an issue on this whole topic. So like, most of it's been numbness created by more nerve pinch.
It's almost always nerve. Gotcha. I mean, it's the thing with hand numbness and blood flow, generally speaking, it's people who there's two major things. People who are not real confident on the bike and they put the death grip on the bars.
Yeah. So if you're someone who gets out on a group ride and that's the only time you have numbness issues, could be either you're putting yourself into a position you're not normally riding in, or possibly more likely, you're not super comfortable in a group, so you're death gripping things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always, when I get people in for fits, I always tell them, ride with your hands open. Don't a second, if you need to, handle the bike or something, but if you're in a group and you're rolling, like try to keep your hands open, keep your hands on the brakes, keep your hands, accessible to the brakes, but keep them open, because as soon as you start to hook your fingers around the hood, you're putting pressure on the underside, which pulls the top of the hand down. So you're adding pressure to your hands essentially as soon as you start to grip.
So is no hands even better?
No hands is great.
Just sitting up, no
Not
hands?
Not safe, but definitely less weight in the hands. Yeah. So don't put the kung fu grip on the bars.
Yeah.
If you can like prevent it.
So if someone's got their fit where it should they be comfortable riding in one set hand position over the course of, say, a 3-hour ride?
That's a very good question, Brian. I was waiting for you to ask that.
Yeah, good. We didn't even script this one. I just asked this one.
Yeah. No, the answer is no. There is honestly, in my experience, there is no perfect bar position that is going to have you comfortable in one hand position for hours on end. Mm-hmm. You have to move your hands around. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just like turning your hands a little bit different, like putting your hands on the ends of the hoods and doing the old like crab claw, like grab of the hoods.
I like to pretend I'm playing a video game.
Yeah, like joysticks. So
you hold it like a joystick.
Yeah, do the joysticks. Yeah.
I like shoot people on the ride. Pew pew.
Yeah,
a car that buzzes me. Choo choo.
You could do joysticks. Yeah, that's fun with the DI2 buttons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Extra buttons, pretend like they're missiles.
Yep.
So, such a child, Brian. So on the drops, you need to be moving your hands from the drops to the hoods, to the ends of the hoods,
to the bar tops,
like move them around. You should be able to keep your hands on the hood. You know, generally the numbness all comes from the hoods. I don't necessarily ever get people saying my hands go numb in the drops
or the bar tops.
Yeah. It's always on the hoods.
Yeah,
because that's where the big variance in weight will be.
Yeah, it's when you're most extended.
Right.
Yeah, you're farthest away from the saddle. Yeah,
and there's a lot of other pieces that could be
there's angles
not aligned.
Yeah. This is also part of the reason why we want people to get comfortable riding out of the saddle. Like, so you can't, I mean, we're talking about hand issue or hand numbness right now, but if your low back starts getting fatigued and tired or sore or whatever over the course of a ride, it's good to be able to stand, change up muscle groups, straighten the back out, adjust the position. It's good to sit up more and back more when you're on some climbs. It's a way to give muscle groups recovery, but also to kind of take some load off certain areas that do anything for 4 straight hours, and you're going to have some issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except listening to this podcast.
There's no issue with that.
4 straight hours.
Yeah,
there'd be issues.
The other little bit I would go into back to blood flow, just because we're not on it too much because it's not the major issue, but gloves, people's gloves. The glove manufacturers,
the pads. Please tell me it's the pads. I can't stand the pads.
Yeah, glove manufacturers, they have great intentions, but the spot where most of the padding is right where the nerve and the main nerves and blood flow run through your hand, and so sometimes if the padding is too thick, it actually adds pressure to the hands.
Yeah. I don't feel like I can hold the bars how I want when I got this big pad on my already the pad of my hand. It like makes it this, I don't know, I end up contorting and doing weird things so I just wear like super flat.
I can't stand padded gloves. Can't stand them.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody comes in with hand numbness issues, one of the first things I ask them is, do you wear gloves? Mm-hmm. And if they brought them, I'll, 9 times out of 10, it's got giant padding right on the 2 pads of your hands.
Winter gloves, do those cause issues?
Not usually. That's more of a blood flow thing. People getting
cold hands.
Cold hands, but the gloves being too tight.
It's a different kind of numb.
It's different. But I always tell people check the position by not wearing gloves.
Gotcha.
Like you should be able to ride a while without wearing gloves. I understand gloves if you're for like the grip part of it, but you should be able to kind of wear gloves or to ride without wearing gloves.
The 2 reasons I wear gloves: the grip when my hands get all sweaty, and in case I go down, I want something protecting these.
Ooh, I wish I had I could pull up the picture of your meat claws.
I've got it in the old archives here. Yeah. We might need to post that somewhere.
Brian hit the deck one time, and his hands were so tore up, it looked like he shoved it in a meat grinder.
It was bad.
It was gross.
I scare kids on Halloween with it. That's just what's posted on my door. My screen door.
Oh.
That's my scary Halloween picture.
So You wear gloves,
Yes.
but I just personally
More
recommend,
padding is not more comfort.
right. Exactly. More is not better. Like more padding in the saddle, not better.
Exactly.
More height on the bars, not better.
More
like,
padding on your saddle.
Yeah.
Or chamois,
Numb butt.
or any of that could be issues.
Yeah. So, gloves, get them, find some gloves without padding. That's another thing to test. If you can ride the bike without gloves, great. Like, but then you can find some gloves that don't have any padding and you should be fine.
Yeah. Test it without. What if someone's, trainer indoors versus outdoors, if they have issues one versus the other? Cause that probably happens some, right? I know I've had athletes before who said, I'm fine. Brian. I'm fine when I'm outdoors, but whenever I get indoors, I start having issues.
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is indoors, well, if you fit yourself, like people who fit their own bikes, if you fit your bike and it wasn't level, there's a fair chance that something is tilted incorrectly. And so usually when you're outside, because you fit it on a trainer, when you get outside, it's going to be tilted poorly.
Gotcha. Everything's seam level. You get outside, now it's all pointing downhill.
Yeah. And then when you if you've been fit and you have numbness indoor, a lot of times it's because you put too much lift under the front wheel and you're trying to ride it like it's flat, but it's not.
Gotcha.
So you're adding weight in places that.
So you haven't changed your body position. You've changed the way the bike is underneath you, which has now put it at an incline relative to you.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So some of the other, like I said, when you're working with the bars, like take some side shots or something like that, and just see if you're shrugging. If you're shrugging, lower the bars. Start there, and then retilt your bars to make sure that those hoods are as flat as they can possibly be. Mm-hmm. If you got a little bit of a gap there at the back of the hood, throw some foam under there and get that to be a little bit, a little bit smoother.
Yep.
And then you can kind of go from there doing small incremental changes. If you still feel weight predominantly on the back of the hand, this is where now we're into wrist angles, basically.
Gotcha.
Wrist angles and hand pressure. We're fine tuning it.
Yep.
You can work with the tilt of the bars in total, or if you can still kind of shimmy the bars up and down a little bit by smaller spacers or whatever, to try to fine tune the pressure in your hands.
Gotcha.
So if you have pressure on the back of the hand, kind of the pad closest to your pinky, you can tilt the bars up a little bit and put a little bit more weight in the front of the hand, kind of that gun grip
towards
portion. Your thumb. Closer to your thumb. And then, if vice versa, if you have a lot of weight in the grip, the thumb grip, mm-hmm. then tilt them down slightly and
gotcha.
Just some weight to the back of the hands a little bit.
Tiny adjustments here.
Anytime you're talking about tilt,
tiny
adjustments make big differences.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to recap, seat height.
Step 1.
Tilt.
Step 2.
Fore and aft.
3.
Make sure the back of the bike is where it needs to be first.
4, 5, 6.
You can get away with a lot of stuff in the front end if the back of the bike is set properly.
I think could be a decent time to also talk about, when you mentioned taking pictures from the side, I think this is a decent time to mention that you sitting on the bike versus you actually pedaling and pushing while on the bike are two different things. Yeah. So if you're fitting yourself based on a static position and then you are riding your bike totally different than that position you're sitting in for the picture, I mean, you can see massive changes in body angles there.
Yeah. A ton. I fit people, obviously we do video-based fitting, and
for that reason, exactly.
Yeah. And we kind of do some motion analysis during the fits, whether it's visual or with the Leomo system. Mm-hmm. But if you're not setting your position when you're pushing, and I make people basically ride at threshold, I'll take video while they're pushing at threshold, because you're going to manipulate your body differently when you're pushing harder. Mm-hmm. And that's when we want to be super comfortable. Usually if you're very efficient and comfortable when you're going hard, when you're going easy, it's like it's going right in hand. It's going to be comfortable easy if it's comfortable when you're crushing yourself. So I always make people go hard, because the other part of it is upper body positioning changes drastically when people go hard. You're going to hunker down like a lot. Like, it's, you go on a group ride and you're tootling along, and as soon as the first hard pedal stroke, before you know it, you're going from a slight break in your elbows to like 90 degrees. So you have to kind of know how you're going to ride outside to judge things like reach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
if someone's having issues, you fit them, they're having issues, and it's because they're changing their body position up because when they're riding too easy, that's where you just tell them to ride harder.
All the time. No. But I have had people come in and like I'm putting them through some efforts that are fairly hard, but because they're not like getting hit by wind and they're not like ducking behind somebody in a group ride, they didn't give me like a really accurate look of how they ride the bike.
Yeah.
And so I've had people come back in because we fit them based on kind of norms and good arm angles, and they look comfortable on the bike and stuff like that. But that wasn't how they rode outside.
Yeah.
And so now that we fit them based on that, when they get outside and they start hunkering down, the bike feels too compact and too short. So then I have to go back and say, hey, all right, I have a feeling you're riding a lot more aggressively. And I'm like, all right, let's crank this up a little bit. Let me give you like a super threshold effort. And when they're going super hard, you can see it immediately. The elbows start to drop and they're hunkering down. So that's where we have to actually increase the reach on them.
Yeah.
So that the arm angles may be a hair long when they're just tootling.
So that's exactly where I'm at with my bike. It's like I feel a little bit stretched until I'm going hard.
Yep.
Which is the position I want to be fit for, is when I'm going hard.
Yep.
And that's when I get down, elbows go to 90s, I slide forward some on the saddle, and it's a totally different fit than when I'm sitting up and tooling around.
That's a good differentiation there. So if you are a racer type or hard group ride or whatever, you're riding to ride hard, you're going to probably want to be fit on a little bit the long end of the reach. You're still going to, when you're tooling around, you're still going to have a slight break in the elbows. You don't want to be locked out ever.
Exactly, yeah.
And you don't want to feel like your shoulders are jutting forward and your shoulder blades are being spread apart quite a bit. You want to still have that break in the elbows, but you want to be on the long end, because when you start hitting it hard, you're going to bend your elbows and you're going to hunker down, and you still need that reach. But like I said before, if the bike's short, when you get up out of the saddle to sprint or something, you can't produce any force because your shoulders come so much forward when you come out of the saddle.
All the balance is
It's
gone.
basically you're ahead of the bars, and you can't pull in a direction that's creating tension to the pedal. So we got to fit you a little bit longer in that sense if you are a racer. If you're a more endurance person and you're just an all day,
rarely going to the drops.
Yeah. Like
you're on the hoods most of the time, or bar tops.
If you're doing it for endurance, that's great. But your bike may fit a little bit shorter. Like you want that break in the elbows and those, slightly relaxed arms when you're going easier.
Yeah.
And that's just rider dependent.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, but you always are going to want to have some bend in the elbows. If you're
when you're locking things out, we got problems.
Yeah, if you're locked out, your neck and shoulders are taking the load, and that's going to pinch a nerve right there.
And that becomes more of your shock absorber instead of the muscles and the joints taking it. Through the arms, you're taking it all, or your core taking most of it. Now you're taking it with your neck bobble.
Oh, 100%. Not good. No, you don't want to have two jackhammers going straight up to your traps and neck.
Exactly. Yep.
The last thing is strength. I mean, we can't do a podcast without talking about strength work, right?
I was wondering if you're going to slide it in here.
I'm gonna. Here it comes.
The best for last.
If you have really poor core strength, there's a chance that there's not too many positions that you're going to get in that you're going to be able to hold the weight off your hands. And so if you notice yourself like having crappy posture, if you take some video of yourself riding, if your stomach, your mid, back, and core is caved in, and that's visible, like check your posture first and see if you can get control over your spinal muscles and straighten out your spine. We're not talking like doing a squat straight, but we're just talking like you're trying to stand on the edge of a cliff and look over it without falling off the cliff. That's the best way I can explain it.
Ooh.
Right.
It's going to make my palms sweat.
Timmy, you don't want to fall in the well. Looking in the well, looking over the well and in, but you don't want to fall in the well, but you can't put your hands on the side of it. Like that's the posture that we want to have when we're on the bike. If you can't hold that, an aggressive position is not in your cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to be much more upright.
Yeah, more upright, but not super duper upright still. But just look at your back and your spine. And if that's the case, try to get the posture. Mm-hmm. If you can't physically do it, do some strength work.
Yeah. Do it anyway. But yes, but then really do it.
Get on it.
Let that be the catalyst for you actually doing some strength work.
And if if you physically can't straighten your, like you can't even make it happen, like you could really, really need strength work, but there's a good chance that the bike's just too long or too aggressive, too far away. If you can't straighten that mid back and get your core active. Your core's
people that sit at a desk all day, like I'm seeing it more and more. They're locked into this sort of frozen shoulder, this protracted state. So like getting them into a position that's not like that's got to be a challenge.
And the crazy thing about, we're talking in bike fitting, it's all millimeters this and, tiny movements here, degrees. But if you have poor posture, the second you get good posture, your shoulders come so far forward.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've had to change people's stems 2 sizes just because we actually started getting their spine activated and getting them kind of having better posture, and their shoulders just came so far forward that like, we had to. So if you're 6 foot, 6'2", and you're riding a 90 mil stem, like there's a problem there. Like that bike shouldn't be that short. Mm-hmm. Like unless you have just crazy short arms or something like that,
or you way sized up.
Yeah, but most of the time it's because your posture on the bike is so poor that it's effectively shortening the reach of the bike or your reach, your personal geometry. Mm-hmm. So take a look at yourself doing some efforts and just kind of start playing with it. Start the saddle. Work the bars.
Go from there.
That's all I got, Funson.
I think that covers it, man.
If you
really, really happy you snuck strength in there.
We can't go.
What's our streak? We gotta have a streak going here.
I know. That and can I say consistency, just so it's in there? Yeah. Said the word. If all this is like just above your head and you're not following it, like trust me, I get it. I've spent years and years and years watching people move and studying biomechanics and how moving around on the bike affects not only your comfort on the bike, your aerodynamics on the bike, but also your efficiency and your pedal stroke and how your muscles are working through 360 degrees that you're locked into. Mm-hmm. So if you question this and you can't just figure it out on your own, find a fitter. It's worth every penny. Mm-hmm. And just find somebody that other people recommend. That's the easiest thing. Don't just pick somebody out of a hat, but find people that other people recommend. It's a bonus if they have some background in movement or physical therapy or something like that, where they know the body, that sort of thing. That way, if they pick out something that's clearly strength related, they can also help you with that part of it too. Yeah. We do that all the time. So you can always book a bike fit if you're local. Book a bike fit at bpccoaching.com. We appreciate everyone hanging out, listening, and watching today. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Peace.